Single dad CEO finds bride chained in a burning car. What happens next will shock you. It was a dusky evening, and the orange glow of the setting sun cast long shadows over the winding road that cut through the wooded outskirts of the city. Michael Hayes, a 38-year-old tech CEO with a reputation for brilliance and emotional distance, was driving his black SUV home from daycare. His 5-year-old daughter Emma sat in the back seat, humming a tune from her ballet class, her pink tutu still glittering faintly in the dim light. They were 10 minutes from their gated neighborhood when Michael instinctively hit the brakes. Up ahead, just off the shoulder, flames flickered violently in the trees. Smoke coiled into the sky, thick and black, obscuring the fading sunlight. He slowed, squinting through the windshield. A car, a silver sedan, had crashed into the ditch, its front end crumpled like paper, and it was on fire. "Daddy, what's that?" Emma asked, voice small, curious. Michael pulled over abruptly, heart hammering. "Stay in the car, Emma. Lock the doors. Do not move." The instant he stepped out, the heat hit him like a wall. The flames were growing, licking hungrily up the hood of the car, creeping toward the windshield. The air smelled of gasoline, metal, and something darker, something terrifying. Then he heard it. A voice, faint, frantic. "Help! Help me!" It was coming from the car. Michael's pulse surged. He sprinted to the driver's side, but the door was crushed in from the impact. He ducked, peering through the shattered glass, and what he saw froze him in place. Inside the car, a woman was slumped against the seat. Her long brown hair was tangled and half-burned. Her face was smeared with blood, her eyes closed. She wore a white wedding dress, torn and dirty, the fabric scorched at the hem. But that was not what horrified Michael. She was chained, literally chained, to the steering wheel. A thick iron chain was looped around her torso, and the wheel itself secured with a rusted lock. Her wrists were bound, her body barely upright, as though someone had staged a grotesque tableau meant for no witness. "Jesus Christ!" he whispered. "Help, please!" The voice came again, barely audible. She was still conscious, still alive, but not for long. Without thinking, Michael grabbed a fallen branch and shattered the rest of the driver's window. Glass flew as he reached in, trying to find the lock, trying to undo the restraints. The heat was unbearable. The fire had begun to crawl through the dashboard, and the flames were inches from the woman's gown. Hey, stay with me," Michael shouted, coughing. "I'm going to get you out, all right? Just hang on." Her eyelids fluttered. For one terrible second she looked at him, and Michael would never forget the fear in her eyes. They were wide, green, filled with unspeakable terror and pain. "Please, they'll kill me. They'll come for me," she choked out. "Do not let them take me back." And then she collapsed, her head falling forward, unconscious. "No," Michael shouted. "Stay awake. Come on." He reached into his back pocket, yanked out his pocket knife, and began sawing at the strap around her wrist. The metal chain was too strong. He shifted, sweat pouring down his face, the flames kissing his arms as he leaned further in. Behind him he could hear Emma screaming from the SUV. The fire roared louder. With a grunt, he braced himself and pulled with all his strength. Something gave. The chain around her chest snapped from its weld, just enough. He reached in, grabbed her under the arms, and yanked with every ounce of desperation he had left. Her body came free just as the dashboard erupted in a blast of flame. Michael stumbled back, dragging her onto the wet grass, shielding her body with his own as a deafening boom cracked through the night. The car exploded in a fireball, sending a wave of heat and debris into the sky. Shocked, winded, and coated in ash, Michael lay there for a moment, heart pounding against the unmoving body of the woman. Emma was screaming his name from the car. Sirens howled in the distance. Someone must have called it in. Michael looked down at the woman in his arms. Her face was pale, lips trembling with the remnants of her breath. He whispered, "You're okay now. I got you out. You're safe." But he knew, whatever hell she had been pulled from, it was only the beginning. The hospital was a blur of fluorescent lights, rushing nurses, and the metallic scent of antiseptic. Michael paced outside the emergency room doors, arms crossed tightly over his chest, soot still smeared across his hands and shirt. The woman had been unconscious since he pulled her from the wreckage, and no one knew who she was. No ID, no phone, no purse, nothing but a charred wedding dress and those chains. 2 officers stood nearby, speaking in hushed tones with the attending nurse. One of them, a stern-looking detective named Graves, approached Michael. "You were the one who found her?" he asked. Michael nodded. "Yes. She was chained inside a burning car. I had to break her out. And you have no idea who she is?" "No. I've never seen her before in my life." Graves eyed him carefully. "No signs of a license plate on the vehicle. Burned clean off. You said she told you someone was going to kill her?" Michael nodded again, jaw tight. "She said, 'They'll come for me. Don't let them take me back.' And then she passed out." Graves exchanged a glance with his partner. "Might be trafficking, possibly a forced marriage. We've seen some rings operating in this state, but without any ID or statements, she's just a Jane Doe. We'll need to wait until she wakes up." Hours passed. By midnight, the emergency room was overflowing with patients from a nearby pileup. The hospital administrator pulled Michael aside. "She's stable, but we don't have the resources for long-term observation, and since you were the one who brought her in," Michael raised a brow. "Are you suggesting I take her with me? We have no family, no ID, and she's not under arrest. If you're willing to supervise her recovery short-term, it would help us immensely." Michael hesitated. Then he glanced through the window. The woman lay still in the hospital bed, IV in her arm, oxygen tube under her nose. Burned lace still clung to her collarbone. Her face, so bruised and exhausted, somehow stirred something in him, a sense of responsibility, maybe even something deeper. "I'll take her," he said. The following morning, Michael drove her to his home on the cliffs of Pacific Heights. The sleek, glass-walled house overlooked the ocean, modern yet warm. It was never meant to feel lonely, but since his wife died 4 years ago, it had grown quieter. Only Emma's laughter had filled its empty rooms. Emma watched from the stairs as Michael carried the woman into the guest room. Her wide eyes took in the tattered gown, the wrapped wounds, the quiet stillness of this stranger in their home. "Is she a princess?" Emma asked softly. Michael paused. "Why do you say that?" Emma pointed. "Because she's wearing a sparkly dress, but it's all burned, like she escaped a dragon." He smiled faintly. "Maybe she did." "I'm going to call her Princess Fire," Emma declared, "because she survived the flames." Later that night, Michael stood at the doorway to the guest room, watching her sleep. She stirred, her brows furrowed. Then she began to mutter, her breath shallow. "No, please, not again." Her hands twitched, clawing at the blanket. Michael stepped forward, unsure if he should wake her. Then her voice rose, cracked and terrified. "I don't want to go back to that house. Don't make me go back." The morning light filtered softly through the guest room curtains, casting golden patterns on the white sheets where she lay. Her eyelids fluttered before opening slowly, her breath shaky as reality came back, not all at once, but in fragments. She didn't know where she was. She didn't even know who she was. The ceiling was unfamiliar. The air smelled of lavender and sea salt. Her arms ached. Her wrists bore faint bruises. Panic began to rise in her chest, but then the door creaked open, and a man entered. He wasn't threatening. His eyes were tired but kind. He moved carefully, slowly, carrying a tray of soup and tea. "Hey," he said gently, setting the tray down on the bedside table. "You're safe. This is my home. You were in a car crash. I found you." She tried to sit up. Her body protested, but he helped her with quiet hands. "Who am I?" she whispered, voice raspy. He shook his head slowly. "You haven't remembered yet. That's okay. Don't force it." She looked at him, searching. "And you?" "Michael," he replied. "Michael Hayes. My daughter and I have been looking after you since that night." As if summoned, the door swung wider and in bounded a little girl with curly hair and a stuffed bunny. "That's her!" the girl exclaimed. "That's the princess I told you about," Michael chuckled. "Emma, remember what we talked about? Soft voices, gentle steps." Emma crept closer, eyes wide. "Can I tell you your name?" The woman blinked, unsure. Emma beamed. Princess Fire. Michael raised an eyebrow. Emma. Because you came from the fire and didn't disappear, Emma explained with all the wisdom a 5-year-old could muster. To their surprise, the woman laughed. Just a small sound, cracked, uncertain, but real, the first sign of something stirring beyond fear. The days passed quietly. She didn't remember her real name, but she began to remember other things. How to make tea, the melody of lullabies, the comfort of soft blankets. She avoided mirrors, flinched at loud noises, and woke often from nightmares she could not describe. But she was healing, slowly. Michael stayed near but never hovered. He let her find her own rhythm in the house, but made sure she always felt she belonged. Emma, on the other hand, had no such reservations. She'd taken to Princess Fire with complete devotion. They painted together, built pillow forts. Emma would pull her hand with confidence through the garden and whisper secrets as if they'd known each other forever. One afternoon, while Michael worked in his study, the three of them went to the local grocery store. It was Sophia's first trip outside since the accident, though she still didn't know that was her name. The store was bright, crowded. Music played overhead, carts rolled past in constant motion. She clung to the handle of their cart tightly, eyes darting. Emma wandered a little ahead, drawn by a display of stuffed animals. For a moment the woman got distracted, picking out cereal. Then she looked up. Emma was gone. "Emma?" she called, voice tightening. She dropped everything and ran. The fluorescent lights overhead seemed to blur. The aisles stretched endlessly. Every shopper was a blur of motion. Her breath grew shallow. She called again, louder now. "Emma?" She turned the corner and saw a man in a gray hoodie bending over a child. For a moment, something inside her snapped. She sprinted, screaming, "Get away from her!" The man looked up, startled. Just a store employee handing out a sample, but she didn't see that. She saw hands dragging her, voices in another language, screams muffled behind locked doors. She collapsed to her knees, sobbing. Emma ran over, wrapping her arms around her. "I'm here! I'm here!" Michael arrived seconds later, panic in his eyes. He dropped to the floor beside her, holding them both. "Shh, it's okay," he murmured, brushing her hair from her face. "She's here, we're safe." The woman looked up at him, her face streaked with tears. "I thought I lost her. I thought. Michael didn't say anything right away, but as he looked at her, he understood. Whoever she was before, whatever she'd endured, it wasn't just about memory loss. She had known real loss, deep, soul-crushing loss, and now she was terrified of ever feeling that pain again. That night, as he tucked Emma into bed, she whispered, "She okay?" Michael kissed her forehead. "She's trying to be, and you're helping more than you know." In the hallway, he found the woman sitting alone by the window, her arms wrapped around herself. He sat beside her. "Whatever you've been through, you don't have to go through the rest alone." She looked at him, her voice barely audible. "Thank you for finding me, even when I didn't know I was lost." And outside, the stars began to emerge, soft and steady, just like hope. Rain pattered against the tall windows of the Pacific Heights estate as Michael sat in his study, poring over a file the private investigator had just delivered. A glass of untouched scotch sat on the edge of his desk, condensation dripping onto a leather-bound journal. He turned the page, the weight of what he was reading pressing hard against his chest. The dress, that charred wedding gown Sophia had been chained in. It had been custom-made in Eastern Europe, ordered through a luxury boutique known for discreet clientele. The buyer's name was fake, but the shipping records led to a warehouse in Nevada, already under quiet federal investigation for suspected trafficking activity. The VIN number from the wrecked car, once decoded, linked to another ghost, an unregistered vehicle, paid for in cryptocurrency. Everything was pointing to one terrifying conclusion. The woman he had brought into his home was not just a victim of random violence. She had been targeted, groomed, and sold. Michael closed the file and leaned back in his chair, jaw clenched. The investigator's final note echoed in his mind. "There's a ring, international. They sell women, brides for the ultra-rich. You're Jane Doe? She's one of them." And she ran. He stared at the closed door to the guest room. Sophia, though she didn't yet remember her name, had begun to show signs of healing. Emma had grown attached to her, and she in turn had warmed to Emma's affection. There was laughter now at the dinner table, and a cautious peace that felt like family. But this truth, threatened all of it. So Michael made a choice. He would not tell her. Not yet. Not until she remembered on her own. Not until he could protect her from what remembering might cost. 3 days later, the sky turned gray with the early evening storm. Thunder rolled over the ocean. Sophia stood by the wide kitchen window, her eyes distant, hands wrapped around a cup of tea. Her hair had grown softer now, her bruises fading. She wore a simple sweater and jeans, Emma's idea, saying, "Princesses wear comfy clothes too." Michael stepped beside her. "You okay?" She didn't look at him. "The rain. It reminds me of something. A place." He waited. She whispered, "There was a house, not here, somewhere else, big, with guards. A locked room." Her hand tightened on the mug. "I remember screaming. No one came. Until one day, someone new showed up. He said his name was Darius." Michael stiffened. Her voice dropped. "He wore a suit, spoke gently, told me I was special. That I'd make a perfect bride. And then they dressed me. The dress, I didn't choose it. They said it would be my last gift before I became someone's possession." She turned to face him, eyes filled with dread. "I didn't know who. I just knew I had to run. I don't even know how I got out." Michael exhaled slowly. "Do you remember your name?" She hesitated, then closed her eyes. "Sophia, my name is Sophia." He reached out and touched her shoulder gently. "Thank you for telling me." That night, as the wind howled outside and the rain lashed against the house, Michael could not sleep. He moved through the hallways, checking windows, doors, every lock. The file from the investigator was hidden in his safe, but the knowledge in his mind weighed heavily. Sometime after midnight he saw it. A flicker of movement on the security feed. The backyard motion sensor light had come on. A shadow crossed through the rain-drenched garden. Michael grabbed the handgun from the lockbox by the front door and stepped out silently. The wind soaked his clothes instantly, but he moved with focus, eyes scanning the darkness. He saw the figure near the hedges, tall, broad, hooded, watching. "Hey!" Michael shouted. The figure turned, startled. For a second their eyes met, then the man bolted. Michael chased him down the side path, across the lawn, through the gate. Mud splashed underfoot, branches clawed at his jacket. He nearly slipped, but he kept going. The man reached the edge of the wooded slope behind the house and vanished into the darkness. Michael stopped, breath ragged, heart hammering. He returned to the house, soaked and furious. When he walked back inside, Sophia was standing in the foyer, barefoot, holding Emma in her arms. "What happened?" she asked, voice shaking. Michael met her eyes. "Someone was outside, watching, but they're gone now." Sophia's arms tightened around Emma. "They found me." Michael stepped forward, wet hair clinging to his face. "No, Sophia. They don't get to take you again. Not this time." The days following the break-in were restless. Every night Michael double-checked the alarm system and kept the handgun close. But it was Sophia who changed the most. Something in her had hardened, not from fear, but from clarity. Memory had returned, slowly, painfully, and with it came purpose. They sat in the kitchen one morning, the sun casting golden light over the countertop where Emma colored with crayons. Michael sipped coffee, watching Sophia as she stared blankly at the steam rising from her mug. "I remember everything," she said finally, voice low. Michael looked up, setting his cup down. "Tell me." "I was working 2 jobs in Romania," she began, "barely getting by. Then I saw an ad online for a nanny position in Switzerland. It promised a visa, housing, good pay. I thought it was my way out." She paused, her hands trembling around the mug. "They flew me to Belgium first, said it was just a stop before final paperwork. But the house I stayed in wasn't a hotel. It was a compound, no windows, no phones, the doors locked from the outside." Michael's jaw clenched. "They took my passport, trained us like livestock. how to walk, how to smile, how to obey. Then they auctioned us off to rich men across Europe, most of them old, some young, but all of them cruel. I was purchased by a man named Victor Langdon. He's titled some kind of baron, a sadist with a taste for obedience. Michael could hardly speak. And? Darius? He runs the whole ring. He's the one who sold me to Victor, told me I should be grateful, that Victor would keep me alive longer than most. When Victor tried to consummate the marriage, I stabbed him with a broken glass and ran. I don't know how I made it to the U.S., but someone must have been waiting. I woke up in that car, chained, left to burn. Michael's chest tightened. You should be in a safe house, under protection. This is too big, too dangerous. I know, she said quietly. But I can't leave. Not yet. You and Emma. I love Emma. And I care about you more than I thought I ever could again, but I won't live free knowing dozens of other girls are still trapped in that hell. I have names. I remember places. If I testify, we could bring it down, all of it. Michael leaned forward. Then we do it, together. But we do it smart, no more surprises. He contacted the FBI through private channels, gave them what little intel they had, and they began to build a case. It would take weeks, maybe months, to organize a raid with international coordination. Meanwhile, Sophia would lay low, but Darius was always one step ahead. It was supposed to be a quiet drive to Emma's ballet class, Michael behind the wheel, Sophia in the passenger seat, Emma singing softly in the back seat with her stuffed rabbit. The sky was clear, traffic light. It felt almost normal, until the SUV slammed into them from the side. Metal screamed. Glass shattered. The car spun off the road into a ditch. Michael's ears rang. Blood trickled down his temple. He looked over. Sophia was moving, dazed but awake. In the back, Emma screamed. Then the doors wrenched open. Two men in black masks yanked at the handles, one aiming a gun at Michael. He reached for the glove box, but the gunman struck him hard in the ribs with the butt of his weapon. Michael fell sideways, gasping for air. "Take the girl!" one of them shouted. No. Sophia lunged into the back seat, wrapping her arms around Emma. Michael, with what little strength he had, kicked out, knocking the door shut on the second attacker's arm. The man howled. Sophia used the moment to shove Emma through the opposite side door and scream, "Run, baby, run! To the trees!" Emma stumbled out and bolted toward the woods. One of the attackers gave chase, but Sophia followed, her legs pumping through the grass, rage overtaking fear. She tackled the man to the ground, clawing at his mask, slamming her elbow into his face until he fell unconscious. Behind her, tires screeched. Michael had managed to climb into the driver's seat and ram the SUV forward, scattering the other man. Breathing hard, Sophia clutched Emma to her chest. Back at the house, they locked every door, called the FBI, and huddled together on the floor. Michael clutched his side, grimacing with every breath. Sophia cleaned his wound, silent, her hands steady, but her eyes wet. "I cannot keep running," she said, pressing gauze against his ribs. Michael nodded. "Then we end it." Sophia met his gaze, fire returning to her voice. "I am going to face him. I am going to stop him. No more hiding. No more waiting." He touched her cheek. "We do it together." She took his hand. "I know, but if I fail, promise me you'll protect her." Michael's grip tightened. "You're not going to fail." And neither of them looked away. The estate was hidden deep in the hills outside of Monterey, luxurious, sprawling, and surrounded by high walls and armed guards. From the outside, it looked like any wealthy businessman's retreat, but inside it was a gilded prison. Sophia stood in front of the heavy oak doors, dressed once again in the white dress Darius had once forced upon her, her face calm but her heart thundering. This time, she was not a victim. She had a wire beneath her gown, a tiny transmitter sewn into the fabric near her collarbone. Michael and the FBI were listening. She had volunteered for this. Her decision, her mission. When the doors opened, Darius was waiting. His smile was as cold and rehearsed as ever, his suit perfectly pressed as if no time had passed. "Well, well," he said, "the runaway bride returns. I must say I expected scars, not steel." Sophia said nothing. She let him take her hand, lead her into the main hall, where chandeliers sparkled overhead and polished marble glistened beneath her feet. But behind the grandeur she saw it, the signs of imprisonment, barred doors, guards posted outside bedrooms, silent girls with dead eyes peeking from shadowed corridors. "Come," Darius said, guiding her into a private lounge. "We have much to discuss. Your disappearance cost me greatly." "I had to think," she replied smoothly, "but I understand now. I know what I am. I'm ready to belong to you." Darius narrowed his eyes, as if weighing her sincerity. "Words are easy. Trust, Sophia, takes sacrifice." She smiled faintly. "Then test me." It was the signal. Outside, hidden in vans and behind the trees, the agents moved. Michael, dressed in tactical black, gave the go. "Now!" The team burst through the gates, taking down the front guards with silent precision. Inside, chaos erupted. Sophia grabbed a fire extinguisher and smashed the lock on the nearest bedroom door. "Go!" she whispered to the frightened girls inside. "Help is here! Run!" She moved to the next room, and then the next, shouting over the alarms. "You're free! Go!" Gunshots rang out. Downstairs, Michael barreled through the hallway, ducking behind pillars as Darius's men opened fire. One of the goons lunged at him with a knife. Michael slammed him into the wall, disarming him, and using the weapon to cut through zip ties on 2 chained girls in a cellar. "Get outside," he urged. "Follow the lights." More shots. Screams. In the upstairs corridor, Darius grabbed Sophia by the wrist, dragging her backward. "You think I did not prepare for betrayal?" he hissed. "You are nothing but property." She twisted, breaking free, and punched him across the face. He stumbled back, furious. "That was for every girl you locked away," she said. He pulled a gun from his jacket, leveling it at her chest. "Wrong move, darling." She froze, breath catching. Down the hall, Michael turned the corner just as Darius pulled the trigger. He dove without hesitation. The gunshot cracked like thunder. Michael hit the ground hard, the bullet piercing his side. "No!" Sophia screamed, catching him as he collapsed into her arms. Darius lifted the gun again, but too late. FBI agents stormed the hall, tackling him, wrestling the weapon away as he shouted obscenities, his voice drowned by the rush of footsteps and orders being shouted. Sophia cradled Michael's head, tears streaming down her face. His blood stained the lace of her dress. "Stay with me," she whispered frantically. "Don't close your eyes. Don't you dare die on me." He coughed, wincing, trying to smile. "That dress still looks better on you than last time?" She sobbed, pressing her forehead to his. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you take a bullet for me?" Michael's voice was hoarse, fading. "Because you're the first thing I've dreamed of in a long time. Please," she begged. "You're not allowed to die. You're the first thing I've dared to dream of, too." His eyes closed. "Michael," she screamed. But in the distance, sirens howled. Medics arrived. Hands pulled her away gently. Oxygen masks, pressure bandages, shouting voices. He was still breathing, barely, but alive. As Darius was dragged away in cuffs, bloodied and defeated, Sophia stood in the hallway of the place that had once been her prison, trembling. Around her, girls cried, embraced one another, stepped into the light for the first time. And for Sophia, the nightmare had finally begun to end. But her heart was still chained to one fragile, beautiful question. Would Michael survive? The sterile scent of antiseptic filled Michael's nose before his eyes even opened. His body ached in ways he could not name. Every breath felt like it traveled through fire. Machines beeped softly around him. He was alive, but it felt like waking from a lifetime of sleep. When his eyes finally focused, they landed on her, Sophia. She sat beside his hospital bed, her hand wrapped tightly around his. Her eyes were red-rimmed, face pale, but she smiled the moment she saw him stir. "You're awake," she whispered, voice cracking with emotion. Michael blinked, struggling to speak. "You stayed." "Of course I did." She leaned forward, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "You saved me. You saved all of us." He managed the ghost of a smile. "Did we get him?" She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Darius is in custody. So are the rest. The FBI moved in across borders. Dozens of girls were rescued. The whole ring is gone." He closed his eyes, relief washing over him like a wave. Thank God. They said it couldn't have happened without you, or your testimony. Michael turned his head slowly to look at her. And you? I'm under protection now, she said. New identity, full immunity, travel clearance. I can start over, anywhere. He tried to sit up, wincing. You could stay, with me, with us. Sophia reached for something in her bag, her smile turning playful through the tears. I was hoping you'd say that, she murmured. From beneath a folder of hospital paperwork, she pulled out a thin loop, made entirely of twisted paper strips. It was white and fragile, and at first Michael did not understand. Then she slipped it over his finger. A paper chain? He asked, confused. Her eyes sparkled. It's a proposal. He blinked. You're proposing to me? Yes. She smiled wider. You once broke my chains. Now I'm giving you this one willingly. It's my way of saying I choose you, not because I need you to save me, but because I want to walk this life with you. Michael let out a pained laugh, then winced. That's not fair. I can't kneel down and top that right now. You'll get your chance, she whispered, brushing her lips against his forehead. But for now, just say yes. Yes, he said softly, eyes full of something far deeper than gratitude. 1,000 times, yes. 2 weeks later, Michael came home to the sound of giggles echoing through the house. He stood in the entryway, leaning on a cane, still healing, but his heart had never felt stronger. In the living room, Emma was curled up in Sophia's lap, the two of them wrapped in a blanket, reading fairy tales. When they saw him, Emma jumped up, running toward him with open arms. "Daddy!" she squealed. "You're back!" He scooped her up, grimacing a little but laughing too. "Hey, firecracker!" Sophia stood, watching them with tears in her eyes. Emma turned to her. "Mommy, come here!" It was the first time she had said it. Sophia froze, her hand over her heart. Then she moved toward them, and Michael pulled her into the embrace. Home had never felt like this before. Safe, whole, real. That evening, as the sun set in hues of rose and gold over the ocean beyond their terrace, Sophia stood beside Michael, holding his hand. The wind was gentle, the sea calm, and for once no shadows lurked behind their eyes. Michael looked at her and said, "So, any plans for the honeymoon?" She grinned. "Anywhere, as long as it's not in a trunk, chained to a steering wheel." He laughed, shaking his head. "You're incredible. I'm alive," she replied, "and I'm loved." They watched the horizon in silence, two souls who had known pain deeper than words, but who now stood in the light of something unbreakable. Love, freedom, a second chance. The sky above the California coastline glowed with the soft blush of sunset, painting the ocean in warm hues of coral and lavender. A gentle breeze whispered through the swaying palms, carrying the scent of salt water and wildflowers. Rows of white chairs lined the beach, facing a simple arch adorned with driftwood and pale roses, all set before the endless expanse of sea. Guests murmured in awe as the soft strains of acoustic guitar floated through the air, but none of them held their breath quite like Michael did. He stood at the altar, dressed in a crisp white linen shirt and navy slacks, barefoot in the sand. The wind played with his hair, and in his hand he held a ring, a symbol of something no fire could burn away. Emma, beaming with pride, walked ahead of the bride, tossing pink rose petals from a little woven basket. She wore a flower crown, and her laughter was music to every heart there. She turned once to make sure everyone was watching, then flashed a gap-toothed grin at Michael before skipping the final steps to his side. And then the crowd rose to their feet. Sophia appeared at the top of the short sand path, radiant beneath the golden light. She wore a simple, elegant white gown with no embellishment, no sequins, no jewels, just a soft, flowing fabric that moved with the wind like freedom itself. Her hair was pulled back with a single pearl pin, her feet bare, and her eyes fixed on Michael's. Each step she took seemed to erase every shadow of the past. There was no fear in her face, no chains clinging to her spirit, only peace, only love. When she reached him, Michael reached out, taking both her hands in his. "You're real," he whispered. "I always was," she said, smiling, "but now I get to live like it." The officiant, a friend of Michael's from his college days, began the short ceremony. His voice was calm, sincere, filled with reverence for the journey that had brought these two souls here. He spoke of survival, of healing, and of love that chose to stay when running might have been easier. Michael turned to Sophia. "I promise to never be your savior," he said. "Only your partner, your equal, your forever safe place." Sophia's eyes glistened with tears. "I promise to never run from love again," she said. "And I promise to choose you every day with all the freedom I fought for." When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the guests cheered, rising to their feet as Michael gently cupped Sophia's face and kissed her, a kiss full of gratitude, hope, and every unspoken vow that had been written in fire and survived. That night, beneath a sky filled with stars, the celebration continued with a quiet intimacy. There was laughter, soft music, and dancing under string lights that swayed with the ocean breeze. Emma led the first dance, pulling both Michael and Sophia into a spinning circle on the sand, giggling as her parents stumbled to match her rhythm. Later, when the beach had grown still and most guests had gone, the three of them stood together, holding paper lanterns in their hands. Michael lit Emma's first. "Make a wish," he whispered. Emma closed her eyes tightly, whispered something to the wind, then released the lantern. It floated upward, glowing like a tiny moon. Sophia lit hers next. She held it for a long moment before releasing it. Then she turned to Michael and took his hand. "This is the life I chose," she said softly, looking at him and then down at Emma, who clung to her side. "I'm no longer chained. I'm no longer someone's possession or a girl trapped in a nightmare. I choose this. I choose love. I choose to live, and I choose this family." Michael didn't answer with words. He simply wrapped his arms around both of them, holding them as the lanterns rose higher, joining a sky now filled with floating lights, symbols of prayers, hopes, and souls finally free. The waves whispered on the shore, the stars shone bright, and a new chapter began. As the final lantern disappeared into the night sky, a gentle peace settled over the shore, an ending that was really a beginning. From tragedy to triumph, from ashes to vows, this was not just the story of Sophia and Michael. It was a story of healing, of courage, of choosing love over fear. It was a reminder that even in our darkest moments, there is a light waiting to be found, sometimes in the most unexpected places. Thank you for joining us on this unforgettable journey. If this story touched your heart, inspired your soul, or reminded you of the beauty of second chances, please consider subscribing to Soul Stirring Stories, where every week we bring you powerful tales of love, resilience, and hope. Subscribe now and become part of a community that believes in the power of storytelling to heal, to uplift, and to connect us all. Until next time, stay kind, stay hopeful, and never stop believing in happy endings.